Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe is on assignment today. Thank you very much for starting your Thursday with us. We are going to begin our show this morning with this bombshell report that's shining a new spotlight on President Trump's former relationship with the disgraced sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Senior administration officials told the Wall Street Journal that the president's name appears in the unreleased Epstein files multiple times and that the DOJ briefed the president about it in May. The report adds that Mr. Trump is among many high-profile names listed. Now, NBC News, we've not confirmed the report. Now, the White House has called it fake news, while a DOJ official told NBC News that, quote, a mention of anyone would not necessarily suggest wrongdoing. All this comes as the president's effort to unseal those secret grand jury testimony documents in the Epstein case was dealt a blow. This was after a federal judge in Florida denied that request. In another development, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche could meet with convicted Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, and that could happen as early as today. And in Congress, the House Oversight Committee says it plans to subpoena the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. In a few moments, we are going to talk to NBC's Julie Sirkin about just that, but we're going to kick things off with NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Monica, good morning. So walk us through some of the key points reported by the Wall Street Journal, and then tell us how the White House, how the Justice Department are responding to all this. I touched on it, but give us more detail here.
Well, Savannah, the Wall Street Journal is reporting specifically that there was a meeting back in May where the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, did brief the president on the fact that his name was included, again, according to the Wall Street Journal, within the Epstein files, which we should point out are numerous. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of documents. But that is something that is, of course, notable because President Trump himself has denied that that's the case. And he was asked in the last couple of months whether there was this kind of a briefing or whether his name was included. And he flatly denied that, which, of course, is different from what the Wall Street Journal is reporting and including. Now, we can also let you know that in the Wall Street Journal report, and according to justice officials, they do confirm that they had mentioned to the president their findings. That is something they're not denying, but they're not specifically talking about when that took place or whether they told the president that his name was included there. And the White House is trying to dismiss this. Of course, they have currently a big battle with the Wall Street Journal, with Dow Jones, and with Rupert Murdoch, its owner, over an original story more than a week ago that the White House also denied and has said that it adamantly wants to put distance between the president and anything related to Jeffrey Epstein. And again, remember, the president hasn't been implicated in any wrongdoing connected to Jeffrey Epstein, but it's certainly the story they don't want to be talking about, but continue to have to answer for because of these headlines that just continue to come, Savannah.
Monica, also, as you mentioned, a federal judge denied this request by the DOJ to unseal grand jury testimony tied to the Epstein investigations. If you could just help viewers understand first why that's something that the Trump administration would be saying, hey, let's release that instead of these documents, and then tell us what happened here with this being rejected.
Yeah, and there are two instances where now the White House has said, well, maybe let's go this route to see if this helps to quell some of the calls from the MAGA base. One was some grand jury testimony, which you're right, this judge has at the moment said essentially the court's hands are tied. We can't release this additional information because it's not in the public interest. It didn't meet the criteria, the judge said, for having to be released at this time. And then the other avenue is this idea that they said, OK, the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, can go and meet with Ghislaine Maxwell in federal prison. And we can now report, according to two sources familiar with the matter, we do expect that to take place today. But it's really unclear what kind of, if any, information that could produce. So that's an open question. And then on top of that, you have the idea that Congress is going to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell potentially. And that could happen in mid-August if it proceeds. But these are, again, Savannah, all examples of things that are going to happen in the coming days, in the coming weeks, which means the story isn't going to go away.
Absolutely. Monica, while I've got you, I do want to switch gears here, ask about it. This is another big headline and a setback for the president. Yesterday, we saw an appeals court uphold a lower court's injunction that blocked the president's order. Our viewers probably remember this, to end birthright citizenship. Tell us about this ruling and what the White House is saying.
So this is in response to an executive order from the White House, which, if it was going to go ahead, would take place or start to take effect at the end of this month. So that is why this court is intervening right now. And they're effectively saying that it is unconstitutional, that this cannot happen in the way that the president would like it to happen legally. But we know that the White House is going to continue its challenges. They have said that they believe they are on the right legal footing for this, and it will continue to work its way through the courts, which this was a major priority for the president as part of his immigration promises when he was on the campaign trail that now he's trying to enact in office.
All right,
Savannah.
Monica Alba, thank you for kicking us off this hour. Well, now let's head to Capitol Hill, where the House Oversight Committee said it will subpoena the Justice Department for those Epstein files. That's according to a committee spokesperson. Well, a group of Republicans joined Democrats to pass the motion. It was introduced by Democratic Representative Summerlee. This was an 8-2 vote yesterday. The committee will also issue subpoenas to several other people, including Bill and Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Merrick Garland, and William Barr. This comes after the committee subpoenaed longtime Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell for a deposition next month. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us from Washington with more on all this. Julie, good morning. Obviously, this is the big news this morning. First, tell us, what do these subpoenas mean? Does it mean the public gets access to these files? We get more information from them? What happens next?
Not so fast, but this is a significant step, Savannah, and good morning to you, forward in the House Democrats' efforts to try and push this story along. But Republicans are definitely helping them out. You mentioned some of them voted on that panel to advance these subpoenas, in part because Republicans did try to soften the blow of forcing the administration's hand, essentially crossing the president here, by including the names of other officials that are red meat to the base, like Hillary and Bill Clinton, like William Barr, like Loretta Lynch. All of these officials and individuals that the public has probably not heard of from years in any kind of official capacity, people that haven't been in power for a long time, but certainly people that the Trump base continues to want to spread theories about. And so Summerlee, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, offered a motion to subpoena these files from the Department of Justice. They would be unredacted. Congress would have them in full. And it really depends on when James Comer, the top Republican on that panel, signs off on the subpoena. But again, he signed off on the subpoena to Ghislaine Maxwell pretty quickly. So the Democrats expect the same here.
Julie, as someone, obviously, you've been on the Hill for a long time. We know how much things usually fall along party lines. This is not so much the case here. I mean, just what's this whole battle over the handling of these files done to the atmosphere there as we see Republicans join with Democrats on certain things and then some kind of hold out because the president says so?
Well, Speaker Johnson is trying really hard to make this a partisan issue. He keeps blaming Democrats, both in his comments to us on the Hill and in his comments on X, on Spaces. He had a conversation with some MAGA influencers yesterday, and all he does is try and paint this as an issue that Democrats are trying to exploit Republicans in. He also points out the fact that Democrats did not try to release these files when President Biden was in power. But the counter argument to that is that the president and his base and Republicans are the ones who kind of put this conspiracy out there, that there exists this list, that there exists these documents that implicates all of these individuals. And that is why the Republican base wants to hear this issue out. Democrats are having a field day with this, to be clear. There were some conversations yesterday. Does this distract from their messaging on that so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, the social safety net programs that will be cut as a result of that? They pushed back quite forcefully. The top Democrat, Hakeem Jeffries, said he thinks these two issues are connected. And by the voting, by these subpoenas in the Oversight Committee, both to Maxwell but also to the DOJ with these files and even these other individuals, it'll make sure that this story goes on. And it's really becoming a Hill versus White House story and not a Republican versus Democrat story at all.
Julie, one other thing I want to talk to you about, something happening later this morning, the Senate re-voting on 7 of President Trump's judicial nominees. What are some of the big ones here and why a re-vote?
Jeanine Pirro is one of them. Remember, she's somebody who the president nominated to be a top attorney here in D.C. That's when another nominee was struck out because he didn't have the votes. But she's not really the top story here, and that's because the reason for this delay is because you'll remember last week, Senator Cory Booker surprised pretty much everybody when he stopped a committee hearing that was considering some controversial nominees, most particularly somebody named Emil Bovee, who has a long list, a long background. The Democrats Democrats say is problematic. There was a whistleblower who alleged that he is somebody in his personal capacity as a lawyer to the president, and later on, of course, as a counselor in this administration, tried to tell the administration they can defy court orders. Still, though, Booker ended up speaking over a process in which Republicans tried to push forward with those votes. Other Democrats left the room. There has to be at least 2 members of the minority party present when those votes take place. In this case, it was just Booker in the room. And so 7 of those 12 nominees didn't get voted out successfully. And that's why the Senate Judiciary is doing a do-over today.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much. Well, Columbia University has agreed to pay a $200 million fine to settle a dispute with the Trump administration over allegations it violated anti-discrimination laws. Now, back in March, the White House canceled $400 million in grants to the Ivy League school, accusing the university of, quote, inaction in the face of persistent harassment of Jewish students. Columbia and other universities have been targeted by the Trump administration. This is for those massive student protests we saw on campuses across the country against the war in Gaza. It called on schools to cut financial ties with Israel. Under this agreement, a vast majority of the terminated grants will be reinstated to Columbia. And despite the resolution agreement, Columbia said that it does not admit to any wrongdoing. Well, the families and friends of the Forest Lane University of Idaho students faced Bryan Kohberger, the man who pleaded guilty to murdering them yesterday as he was sentenced to life without parole. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has more on the powerful and emotional moments in the courtroom.
A gut-wrenching day in court.
Why did I get to live and not them?
As family members and friends of the 4 University of Idaho students brutally murdered in their off-campus home 3 years ago.
You're a joke. Complete joke.
Faced convicted killer Bryan Kohberger directly ahead of his sentencing.
There are the panic attacks. The kind that slam into me like a tsunami out of nowhere. I can't breathe. I can't think. I can't stop shaking.
One of the victim's surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen, who saw Kohberger in the house that night, speaking publicly for the first time.
He is a hollow vessel, something less than human. A body without empathy, without remorse.
Kohberger expressionless throughout his sentencing hearing as grieving loved ones read emotional victim impact statements.
Today we are here to prove to the world that you picked the wrong families.
The father of Kaylee Gonzalez even turning the podium to face his daughter's murderer head on.
The world's watching because of the kids, not because of you. Nobody cares about you. You're not worth the time, the effort to be remembered.
Later, he spoke outside.
When I was looking at him, we had a stare down, and he's just filled with demons.
In court, Kohberger not flinching as Kaylee's sister taunted the former criminology PhD student.
The truth is, you're as dumb as they come. Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. I see through you. You want the truth? Here's the one you'll hate the most. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your ass.
The courtroom at times erupting in applause, including for Xana Kernodle's stepfather.
You took our children. You are gonna suffer, man. I'm shaking because I want to reach out to you, but I hope you feel my energy, okay? Go to hell.
The plea deal was controversial among the victims' families, some wanting a trial with a potential death penalty and the chance they might get more answers. Xana Kernodle's aunt with a surprising message for the killer.
Bryan, I'm here today to tell you I have forgiven you because I no longer could live with that hate in my heart.
Kohberger only breaking his silence once when asked by the judge if he'd like to make a statement before sentencing.
I respectfully decline.
The judge laying into Kohberger for his silence and lack of remorse throughout the case, calling him a faceless coward before handing him down 4 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole.
The time has now come to end Mr. Kohberger's 15 minutes of fame.
But perhaps the most poignant moments, the tributes to the 4 young lives that were stolen. Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle.
Because of him, 4 beautiful, genuine, compassionate people were taken from this world for no reason. He took away how they made everyone feel safe, loved, and full of joy. He took away the ability for me to tell him that I love him and that I'm so proud of them.
And being there in that courtroom, one of the most striking things was watching Bryan Kohberger sitting there emotionless while even his own mother was there crying, the judge at times welling up along with several of the family members and friends of the victims. But Kohberger showed no indication of remorse as he was escorted out of that courtroom to begin life in a maximum security prison. Back to you.
All right, Liz, thank you so much. Well, now we have trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Maris here on set with us for more. Thank you so much for being here, Misty. Great to see you. So this plea deal, it's really divided the families. It, of course, spared Kohberger from the death penalty. I want to start here by playing a little bit of something that Kaylee Gonzalez's brother told reporters just after this yesterday, and we'll talk on the other side.
That moment underscored what we feared all along, and that this case was following the same well-worn path toward expedience over justice, lack of trial due to plea bargains. These aren't just failures in process. They're failures that have real consequences for real people.
He said he feels that his family was not given this real chance at justice. It's something his parents told us when they were sitting right here on set last week. So obviously divided the families. But walk us through what the sentence has provided.
Absolutely. So as the prosecutor said at the very end of his statement before the court yesterday, when Bryan Kohberger walks out of here in shackles and the door closes behind him, that's the end. You can put this behind you. You have finality. So now Bryan Kohberger is serving 4 fixed life sentences, meaning no possibility of parole, 10 years plus 10 years for a burglary. That means he will spend the rest of his life in prison. And he waives his right to any appeal, to seek leniency or resentence down the road. So this was truly to put this behind all of the families who, of course, they're torn, they're grieving, but it does provide finality when trial is always a gamble, even when it seems like it's not.
This has obviously been such high interest, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers were actually fully watching our special report yesterday of this sentencing. And they may have heard, they may have caught, there was a little discussion, kind of almost like an instruction from the judge about the possibility of an appeal. Explain to us what the judge said, and is that totally off the table?
Yes, so the judge said that if you file an appeal, you'll be violating your plea agreement. So he made that point to Kohberger. There's a Supreme Court case called the Garza case, which found that there's no absolute, even when there's an appeal waiver, there's no absolute rule that says a defendant or an incarcerated individual can't file an appeal. They could still do it and go through the process. It is unlikely to be successful, but that Supreme Court case opened the door. So he almost gave a warning that it would violate the terms of your plea and there could be consequences. And that's part of the reason why the judge has said that he's holding back some of what's under seal with the court until that time to file a notice of appeal actually expires.
And would that mean that the death penalty could be back on the table should he file an appeal?
It absolutely could be. There's lots of different things that could happen if he were to violate that plea agreement.
Got it. Okay, so the other thing that we've heard from some parents, okay, he's behind bars for the rest of his life. But the fact that the death penalty is not what ultimately happened here means, is there this option? He writes a book. He gives interviews. We obviously are all still wondering about the motive. Does he end up eventually talking about that, saying, to the judge's point, whatever he feels like, whether it's the truth or not one day? And big important question, could he profit off of any of that? What's the legal rules surrounding that?
So now that he hasn't had the trial, he's pled guilty. That means that he could speak because he's not going to have these appeals that are pending where what he says behind bars could impact him. So nothing can stop him from speaking. Nothing can stop him from telling a story. But there are what's called son of Sam laws. They are in Idaho. It means he could not profit from it. And if there were to be an interview, the organization would have to alert a government entity, and any profits from that interview would have to go to the victim. So that's the way it works. So it could happen. And, you know, the judge actually addressed this when he spoke to Kohberger and said, don't give this guy any more than this 15 minutes of fame. Don't give him a platform to exploit the victims in this case.
You mentioned the documents that are beginning to be unsealed, not all at once, though. What have we learned so far?
Well, what we've seen is the Moscow Police Department has basically made public a bunch of their investigation records, 300 plus pages. And we thought this case could not get more disturbing, but there are even more disturbing details in these documents. The initial investigation saying it was very clear that a struggle occurred.
Right.
Horrifying scene. Xana Kernodle stabbed 30 times. Kaylee Goncalves, 20 times blunt force trauma and asphyxial injury. So we're learning more, especially from those autopsy reports.
Like a struggle.
Defensive rooms and a struggle. Xana and Kaylee, they fought hard. That's what we could tell from these documents.
Misty, thank you so much for joining us this morning. High interest. We appreciate your time. Thank you. Well, a magistrate judge paused Kilmar Abrego Garcia's release from federal custody yesterday. This comes shortly after a separate judge ruled that Abrego Garcia should be released while he awaits trial on human trafficking charges. Now, Abrego Garcia's deportation case, it of course generated these national headlines. It was after the administration mistakenly deported him to a prison in El Salvador in March over what the government had called at the time a, quote, administrative error. Abrego Garcia was brought back to the U.S. last month and charged with 2 federal felonies. He has pleaded not guilty to both charges. Now, the pause, which was requested by both parties in the case, will allow the government a chance to appeal and give Abrego Garcia's lawyers a chance to seek further legal remedy from the court. The pause is set for 30 days or until further court order. Well, a Long Island man is facing multiple federal charges for an alleged plot to set off homemade bombs around New York City. Authorities say he had placed these explosives on several rooftops in downtown Manhattan, but he was caught before any of them were detonated. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk has that story.
Michael Gann's goal was to blow up multiple homemade bombs in Manhattan, according to federal prosecutors. The 55-year-old who was arrested in June was indicted Tuesday on 3 explosives-related charges. Authorities say he made at least 7 improvised devices and brought them from Long Island to New York City. The NYPD says Gann had not been on their radar until receiving a tip.
So this was a matter of hours, and important for the public to know that we follow leads not only thoroughly, but incredibly quickly wherever we need to take them in order to keep the public safe.
The bombs, according to the indictment, made with chemicals and components bought online, including 200 cardboard tubes and 50 feet of fuses. One of the IEDs contained 30 grams of explosive powder, which is approximately 600 times the legal limit for consumer fireworks. The indictment alleges Gann tossed one of the IEDs onto the subway tracks on the Williamsburg Bridge and stored 5 of the homemade bombs, along with 4 shotgun shells, in New York City's Soho neighborhood on multiple apartment rooftops.
One of those rooftops is right here, a place where people live, work, where tourists come to shop. It is chilling to imagine what may have happened if Gann had followed through with this alleged plot.
We're still working to discern the intent.
Authorities do not specifically say what Gann's motive was, but included this social media post in the indictment. Tagging President Trump, it reads in part, "Here in New York City, it's too bad the wall wasn't built. They seem to be coming and coming." Gann has not entered a plea, and his attorney would not comment on the case.
All right, our thanks to Stephanie Gosk for that report. Well, the criminal complaint says Gann had a long rap sheet with at least 30 arrests. Nearly half of them were felonies. Authorities say he has a history of mental illness. Well, in an update on a story we brought you yesterday, the young man at the center of a traffic stop that ended in violence in Jacksonville, Florida, is speaking out for the first time since his arrest. It comes after video of the incident went viral, appearing to show him getting punched in the face by a police officer. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra has the details and a warning. Some of the video is disturbing.
Yeah, for the first time, we are hearing from the driver who filmed that moment, that encounter with police that went viral this week. And together with his attorneys, they say they are pursuing all legal avenues in their quest for justice.
Can you call your supervisor? Can you call your supervisor? All right, go for it.
For the first time since this video of a Florida traffic stop turned violent captured the nation's attention, the man at the center of it talking publicly about that day.
I just really wanted to know, why I was getting pulled over and why I needed to step out the car when I know I didn't do nothing wrong. I was really just scared.
The driver, 22-year-old William McNeil Jr., posted this video of the February incident already in progress, recorded when Jacksonville officers pulled him over, according to the arrest report, in part because his headlights were off in the rain. Body cam video released by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department shows McNeil received several warnings.
Open the door and exit, or we are going to break the window.
Before an officer broke his window and punched McNeil in the face.
Exit the vehicle!
What he exhibited was a 21st century Rosa Parks moment.
Now represented by civil rights attorney Ben Crump, McNeil pled guilty to resisting an officer and driving with a suspended license. He can be seen in his booking photo with a bloodied lower lip, his family demanding justice.
And you need to terminate that officer immediately. Immediately.
The officer in question, Donald Bowers, had 5 previous complaints according to police records. 3 of them were substantiated, resulting in either counseling or reprimand. Bowers' statement in the arrest report says, quote, the suspect was reaching for the floorboard of the vehicle where a large knife was sitting. McNeil spoke with Tom about that allegation.
I never reached for the knife. The knife was under the seat and I was held at gunpoint.
Jacksonville Sheriff's Office says Officer Bowers has been stripped of his law enforcement authority while the department conducts an internal review.
Now, we did attempt to reach out to Officer Bowers himself. We reached out to the local police union. We have not yet heard back. But we did hear from the mayor of Jacksonville, who called this incident disturbing and says she will wait for the results of that internal investigation with Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
All right, Marissa, thank you. Well, it is time now for weather. Much of the country is in for a scorching end to the work week with heat alerts affecting millions this morning. Hi, Michelle. She's here in studio with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. Yeah, it's day after day of this heat, and we're going to continue it today and also tomorrow. And that gets really tough on the body, how long it's going on. So we're looking at 129 million Americans under heat alerts. We have heat advisories. That's where you see the orange, heat watches, also extreme heat warnings. That's where you see that hot pink color. So places like St. Louis, Little Rock, also Jackson. And we're going to see temperatures soaring into the 90s, into the triple digits. You factor in the humidity, it's going to feel like 115 in some spots. So as we look at this dangerous heat wave, we're sort of looking at the numbers where you see the orange, 127 million people. There's a risk for long periods of exposure. So if you're out and about and you're not finding shade, you're not drinking water, you're not getting to those cooling centers, that certainly could be a risk. And 64 million are under major risk. Where you see the red here, that's where you're going to see heat-related health impacts. Very likely, not only today, but also tomorrow. We do have major impacts tomorrow. It's all due to that big heat dome in place, kind of tacked in place, not moving, and it's ushering in this heat and also this humidity. There is a little relief on the way. That comes in the form of a cold front. So you can see back behind this cold front, we are seeing that relief, but ahead of it, still so warm and sweltering in places. 100 degrees today in Dallas. It will feel like 103. It's going to feel like 94 in Atlanta, feeling like 105 in Jacksonville. It's going to feel like 93 in D.C. So that's today. Then tomorrow, that heat dome doesn't budge. So we're still looking at temperatures well into the 90s, into the triple digits in some spots. Dallas feeling like 104 tomorrow. It's going to feel like 104 in Augusta, too. And D.C. tomorrow feeling like 107. So then as we go throughout the weekend here, we're looking at temperatures still staying toasty. We're looking at 80 degrees on Sunday in Boston, 88 on Monday in New York City, and temperatures into the 90s in D.C., not only Saturday, but Sunday and also Monday. And keep in mind, those are the air temperatures, not the humidity involved. And then as we look towards the southeast, still really toasty, too. We're looking at triple digits in Jacksonville by Monday and close to the triple digits on Sunday. So this heat wave is particularly dangerous because it's long and because it's so extreme and the humidity levels are still so high.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Hot weekend ahead. Yeah. Michelle, thank you so much.
Sure.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.